Last week, I went to Montreal to go to the film festival RIDM and to visit their forum in order to pitch my two upcoming documentaries, Movement and Los Hoteleros, to one of the many funders, distributors, and co-production partners that attended the film festival. In this video, I'm going to cover how I prepared for this event, whether or not you should consider going to a film festival or a market to pitch your film, and what I learned at the end of the experience and what you can learn from my experiences as well. So first of all, why am I going to a film festival or a market to pitch my film when I could just send an email? Well, there's still something that cannot be replicated over email with face-to-face meetings that are able to be accomplished at film festivals and markets. There's a more immediate connection that can be made with people, and in fact, some of the people that I had cold emailed and didn't get a response from were at the film festival, and I managed to make a connection, and they have since responded to my emails in the follow-ups. This was the number one reason why I went and took the chance to go to this film festival. So how did I prepare for this event? Well, number one, the most important thing was to research who was going to be attending, so that way I know, number one, is this the right festival for me to go to? And number two, am I going to meet the people there that I want to meet? Now, how do you know if this is the right festival for you? For me, it was pretty easy. I looked at who had attended the film festival in the past from the industry perspective to determine if the people that I want to meet are there. You can do this by going to the film festival's website and then looking up to see if they have an industry section first of all, because not every film festival has an industry component. And number two, then look through that industry component and see who had attended in the past. I looked through RIDMs in the past and I knew that most of the major Canadian distributors, especially the ones from Quebec, attended the film festival in the past. As well, they had attendees from CBC, from PBS POV, Nat Geo was there, along with film funds such as Catapult Film Fund, and some of the most important film festivals and forums in the world, such as Berlinale Talents, Hot Docs, Locarno Film Festival, and numerous more. So I knew that this is probably the second most important documentary film festival in Canada to attend for doc filmmakers, and that is why I made the choice to go to this film festival. Another reason why I picked this film festival in particular was because they actually arranged one-on-one meetings for you in a speed dating style. What this means is that we were able to select who it is that we wanted to meet, and then we could make requests through the system that they provided in order to facilitate the meetings. This is so much easier than having to send out individual emails to everyone you want to meet on your own. I'm not too sure how many other film festivals have the exact same setup. I know that for Big Sky and Mountainfilm, which I attended in years past, they basically just sent out a delegation list and you were required to arrange meetings yourself if you wanted to. And that can be also quite time consuming. It's the way some festivals do it, but I really like the way that RIDM had it set up. So how did I prepare for this film festival? The first thing I had to do was research who it is that I wanted to meet. I prioritized Canadian distributors and co-producers, as well as some of the international funders and broadcasters that were there, such as Nat Geo and Mubi and PBS as well, and Al Jazeera. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to get meetings with everyone, and a couple of the ones that I had meetings with weren't able to attend, but I did manage to line up, I think it was 12 meetings overall with a lot of the people that I did want to meet, and they were highly productive. I brought with me to the event a printed out version of both of my pitch decks. That way I had something physical for them to look at rather than just my computer screen. And I also had the teaser lined up on my computer screen ready to show. The other thing that I wanted to, but I wasn't quite able to do, was to have postcards printed out with a QR code to my website that would take them directly to the project page. I wasn't able to set this up in time, but it's something that I'm definitely going to do in the future. It's nice to have a little something to hand somebody, but you don't want to give somebody a full pitch deck, because chances are that full pitch deck is probably just going to wind up in the recycling somewhere. Hopefully the recycling somewhere, rather than the garbage. And the other thing I did to prepare was I spent some time going over my pitch, going over my logline, and going over the key elements of my synopsis that I wanted to get across. So that way I was prepared and I wasn't stumbling over my words when I was talking to the people on the other side of the table. The 15-minute sessions go by very, very quick, and you only have so much time to get your point across. So I spent a lot of time practicing my pitch before I went. So going into the film festival, I wasn't really too sure what to expect. I knew I was probably going to be a little bit nervous because this is my first time doing an event like this. And I also knew that it was unlikely, very unlikely, that I was going to get a yes on the spot, because 15 minutes is just not enough time for distributors or broadcasters to do their due diligence to see if it's a project that's worth attending. So really I was expecting just a meet and greet, get to know the people, get to learn a little bit more about their priorities, more than just what's on their website, and then be able to introduce my project a little bit and be able to follow up with them through email later on. I know that there's so many people that they meet and there's so many people that I meet that it's difficult to keep track of everybody, so I wanted to make sure that I got those emails out afterwards quickly. Most importantly, I was treating this event as a learning experience, so that way I'm prepared for future events like this, where funders, where broadcasters, and where people that I want to meet in the industry are. So that way I can keep developing my skills in meeting people and pitching people. I'm quite a bit of an introvert, and these kind of situations can be a little bit uncomfortable for me, as is doing this on YouTube right now. But you know what? The more you practice it and the more you do it, the better you get and the less uncomfortable you will be. So that's part of the reason why I took the step to go through this at this time. Also, it's very, very, very difficult to get funding for projects. And if you can have 15 minutes to sit down with a broadcaster or with a funder that you really respect, like Nat Geo, that does miles for you, more than just a cold email does. So that was very important to me as well. So, a little bit about how the event was set up. There were multiple components to the Forum RIDM for filmmakers to attend. Number one, for filmmakers that got into the doc lab, they had 3 days in advance of the forum to practice their pitches and to arrange meetings with mentors that could help them guide through their pitch. The doc lab is highly competitive, so only a select few projects got in, and mine didn't. But I still decided to show up for the forum anyways with my project, as did many other filmmakers who didn't get into the forum. There were approximately 100 filmmakers attending at the festival. On the first day of the forum, they had panel discussions set up, as well as roundtable meetings with some of the same distributors and funders that were there, where we met with small groups of about 5 people to talk about what the funders' priorities are, what they're looking for, and to do a little meet and greet. So I had 2 of these on the first day, 2 panel discussions. As well, I attended one of the public or live pitch sessions to watch some of the teams that were in the doc lab pitch their films. And this was a huge learning experience for me. It was fascinating watching the pitch sessions take place and seeing how other filmmaking teams pitch their films to a live audience. I think the one thing that I took away from that was I really liked when the filmmakers started with their personal connection to the story. I found that it made it more connectable and relatable to the audience and really showed that their intent and their passion behind the project. And not all of these films were necessarily personal films that they were doing about themselves. A lot of them took place in other places of the world and they were a part of, but they had some connection that they really cared about in the film. The other really major thing that I took away from this film festival that I didn't know before was the high-end film festivals such as Hot Docs, Locarno, and I'm sure Berlinale, Sundance, Tribeca, all of the big film festivals, they follow films from a very early stage in development to see which films they might want to include in their festivals 2, 3, 4, 5 to 7 years in the future. So being at these events and meeting with these film festival representatives could give you a tiny leg up on getting into these film festivals in the future if the programmers there like your concept, like your film, they might keep it on a once to watch. This is especially more prevalent if you get into something like a doc lab, then they can definitely know that this is a film to watch. But it's a common refrain among filmmakers around the world that it seems like it's almost impossible to get into the top tier film festivals, to get into the Sundances, to get into the Berlinales, to get into the Cannes. So this was something that I found very enlightening. You can probably increase your chances slightly by being at these events and talking to people about your film. The other thing that may help you get into film festivals is engaging a sales agent or festival agent at a certain point in your film. So they can actually also save you thousands of dollars on film festival submissions because a lot of them have relationships with film festivals that allow them to get fee waivers to certain festivals. And they'll also go through the festivals that you have been through in the past and ask for waivers for alumni for their film festivals. From what I understood, every sales agent and every festival agent works a little bit differently, but they tend to seem to want to come on board around the rough cut or fine cut stage to help you with those strategies if they're interested. Now, the sales agents that were there at the festival at RIDM, they mentioned that they all each tend to take on only about 6 to 8 films a year. So once again, it's a very, very highly competitive process, but this could be a way to give you a little leg up in getting your film into some very important film festivals. Now, what did I learn about pitching my film? Well, this was very interesting. I felt like I was fairly well prepared and that what I wanted to say came across very well. I tend to ramble on a little bit, so I really needed to make sure that I had my logline dialed at the very least and then explain how I wanted to proceed with the film. The pitch meetings tended to go like this. We spent about 2 to 3 minutes getting to know each other, a couple minutes learning about their priorities. I tended to try to ask about their company first. And then from there, I asked if I was okay to introduce my project and talk to them about it for about 5 minutes. And then I left a little bit of time for us to discuss the project, answer any questions, provide any feedback that they may have on the project or on my pitch. And so the time goes by really quick, but you can get a lot done in this time. That was the most important thing I learned was having something to show and keeping the pitch short. I found that when I handed that physical pitch deck across the table, a lot of people's eyes opened up because I didn't see very many other filmmakers doing this. So I think that it was something for them to physically grasp and look at. And I think a lot of them actually liked that. So I hope it left an impression and I hope that it worked. Who knows? We'll find out. And the other thing that I learned from attending this film festival was that there is a significant push in the industry right now and probably into the future for international co-productions. And the reason that this is because everyone's domestic broadcasting system or funders are starting to have smaller budgets and less access to funding. You hear this a lot, that budgets are being cut in the industry all around the world. So international co-pros are a way that you can get multiple partners on board to get enough budget to truly do a film. There was one really interesting panel discussion at the film festival this year about the film Intercepted and how they made it a co-production between Canada and Ukraine and France. The director of the film was a Ukrainian Canadian, and they had relationships with a co-production company in France. And because they needed a production crew on the ground in Ukraine, and it made sense, they also wanted to have Ukraine as a third party in the co-production. The big challenge for them was because Ukraine had just entered war, all of the budget in Ukraine was diverted from, say, for example, cultural elements like film into the war effort. So they had a very difficult time raising the 10% of the budget that they needed to make it an official co-pro. But they managed to make it work and they put together an amazing film. I managed to see the film. Unfortunately, I watched it with French subtitles. It's in the Russian language, so I needed subtitles. And my French is about like high school level. So I only understood maybe 25 to 30% of the film, but it's definitely one that I want to watch again in the future. The other reason why the co-productions was important for me is because I want my film Los Hoteleros to be an international co-pro between Mexico and Canada. So it is really interesting learning more about co-productions there. Lastly, the most important thing to remember is to attend the karaoke if you get a chance. I sang an amazing rendition of For Non-Blondes, What's Going On. Actually, it's terrible, but don't tell anybody that. But the networking events afterwards, the happy hours, that's where you get to meet other filmmakers, other producers, other directors, and really get to know people. That's one of the most fun part of the festivals for me. But this film festival had another thing that I found really special as well. There was a filmmaking team from Cuba who had a very interesting project, but they really needed a camera. They didn't have very much equipment there in Cuba. So I was very thrilled to see that by the end of the film festival, they walked away with a Canon C300 to help them film their film. I would have loved to have just given them my camera. I think it would have made a huge difference, but unfortunately I didn't have it at the event. So, but I'm glad to see that they managed to get a camera. Now, should you consider going to film festivals or film markets to pitch your film? This is a tough question to answer. It really depends on where you are at in your career and, more importantly, what you want out of your career. If you want to break into the documentary industry, then yes, film festivals are a very important place to go and to meet people. Even if you're an editor or a DP and you really want to meet producers and directors to work with in the future, these events and the networking sessions can be a great place to go to meet. But if you're okay doing corporate commercial work, documentary style branded content, and you're not really putting together your own projects, then it might not be the best use of time or money for you. So those are some things that you might want to consider as well. Now, which festivals should you attend? This is very important because, as I mentioned, not every film festival has an industry component in their programming. So the first thing you have to do is you have to look at the festival and see if they have an industry component and who's going to that. My hometown festival, Calgary International Film Festival, does have an industry component where they bring in people to speak in panel discussions. However, they don't really have any set up pitch sessions and they don't bring in too many funders or distributors really. So it's not really a great festival to go to pitch. It's a great place to go to learn, a great place to go to watch films, but not a great place to go to pitch. In Canada, Hot Docs and RIDM seem to be the biggest ones for documentary specific, but then you also have TIFF and Vancouver International Film Festival, which can be important as well, and DOXA and Lunenburg DocFest as far as I know as well. Obviously, the big five in the world are good places to go as well, because most of them also have markets attached. For example, Berlinale has the European film market attached to it. Cannes has the Marché du Film. I apologize if I butchered that. Sundance has almost everyone in the industry going to it. I'm not too sure exactly what programs Venice has, but I'm sure that that's a great place to go to meet people. And TIFF, while it was initially informal, I believe in 2025 they are putting together a formal market as well. In addition to the big five, you also have festivals like Big Sky that brings together funders. There's the American Film Market. There's MEPCOM. There's a new one called LATAM in Latin America. South by Southwest brings together a whole bunch of different funders. Doc NYC is a good place to go. There's a number of ones. But the key thing is doing your research and making sure that it is a festival that has an industry component and that there are people who are in the industry that you want to talk to at those festivals. Now here's the thing. Sometimes these can be quite expensive to attend. On top of the industry pass that you have to pay for, you usually have to also pay for all your room and lodging and food and drinks while you're there. So how can you afford to do this? Well, so what I did to afford this one was I submitted a grant application to the Canada Council of the Arts to fund my travel. They have programs for travel to meet and to pitch and to present projects. So I applied to that. I had previously gotten a grant to attend Mountainfilm with my previous film, Mo Crazy Strong, and I got awarded that. So I took the chance to do this. Now, I had to put the money up front in the hopes that I get the grant later on. It's kind of a little bit of a risk, but I hope that it pays out. You might also want to look to local or regional grant organizations as well. I know in Edmonton, Alberta, they have a program through the Edmonton Industry Screen Office for access to markets, I believe, as well as building travel to these film festivals and markets into your project budgets, so that way you can go and secure additional funding is another way that you can fund this. It's best, of course, if it's your first time going, to stay close to home to do this, as that's going to keep your costs down. But if you need to travel, then you need to travel. If you have any questions about my experience, feel free to ask me in the comments. I'll get back to them as soon as possible. And if you enjoyed this video, I'd love it if you subscribe to my channel. Thanks, and I'll see you in the next one.